And I believe we are going. All right. Hello. Hello. And welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about why shame and guilt are the things that keep us trapped in our current systems of abuse and our current systems of inequality and our current systems where we, generally speaking, as a population, tend to feel unsafe in our lives, where we tend to feel like there's that constant manufactured discontent of just not feeling safe, not feeling like we're going to be provided for, not feeling like we're going to get our needs met. These systems that we live in that constantly tell us that there's something wrong with us, that we're not enough, that we're shameful, that we're broken, that we're not doing good enough, that we're not achieving enough, that no matter what we become, no matter what we grow into, it's never okay. Our systems that make it okay to abuse and violate and harm some members of our population. Our systems that tell us, again, just over and over and over again, that we are not okay. And that then deal in exploitation and in harm, and we wonder why, and we feel powerless when we see things happen. How shame and guilt are a huge part of keeping us locked in these systems. How shame and guilt and us continually living lives where we are navel gazing at ourselves, where we are trapped in our own sense of not being good enough and not having enough and not being enough, and how that plays into keeping us stuck in these systems, keeping us participating in these systems, keeping us in situations where we don't fight back against these systems, and how coming out of that shame, out of that guilt, out of these systems that continue to tell us how just broken, bad, wrong, not enough we are, makes us people who are capable of being on the side of liberation, of being on the side of creating a more equitable place for all of us to live, and not only that, but just like creating a better life for ourselves. Because again, a lot of us are coming to self-help, spirituality, personal growth work because we can see and we can feel that life doesn't feel good, that we don't feel safe, that we don't feel secure, that we don't feel like we're going to get our needs met, and or we don't feel like we're living purpose, or we feel very, very alone and isolated. And again, we are dealing with a sense that something isn't right. And we come to self-help, spirituality, and personal growth to try to fix that. And that's a completely innocent and a completely reasonable desire, right? Like everybody who comes to any kind of spirituality, personal growth, self-help work is usually coming with these innocent intentions of just wanting to feel better and wanting to be able to find a way of life that doesn't feel so hard and doesn't feel so harsh and doesn't feel like we're not going to be okay. And instead of getting real tools that help us to actually find that way of feeling better, that help us to actually break out of what is harming us, to even identify what's hurting and why it's hurting, and then giving us tools for getting out of that. Our self-help, spirituality, and personal growth, so much of it just drives us deeper into that shame, blame, and guilt by giving us all these spiritual, self-help, personal growth rules that are all in alignment with the systems we're currently living in, that are spirituality, that are essentially the systems of capitalism and religion and all that comes with that, with crystals and feathers on it. And so again, I really want to try in this video to again deeply highlight why your pain is not your fault, and why we want, in a lot of ways, to blame and shame and guilt ourselves, and why that blame and shame and guilt makes sense to us. Because we really think that this blaming and shaming and guilting ourselves is the way to fixing ourselves so that we could finally be happy and have the lives we want to have. And so again, it's innocent, but unfortunately, it is not the way, and it is not going to get us out of the system, because it is the system. It is the thing we're trying to escape. It's not the remedy to the thing we're trying to escape. It is the thing we're trying to escape. And learning to identify that, learning to see that for what it is, and then being able to move ourselves past it is actual liberation. Okay? So, again, I hope that all of my free content, that everything I put out on YouTube, that everything I put out on my blog, all my TikToks, blah, 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 right? Like, I'm constantly putting out content that I hope is helping you to see that you are not broken. That is the single underlying message of everything that I put out. That you are not broken, you are not failing, that there is nothing bad, wrong, shameful, inherently not good enough about you. And the reason that is the foundation for everything that I put out, the reason that I put out so much content about this, is because if we want a better world, if we want better systems, if we want to shift anything that we have right now, we are going to have to fundamentally shift how we see ourselves first. We are not going to be able to build new systems. The world we want to live in, where everyone has access to safety and human rights simply because they exist, without being able to see ourselves differently first. So long as we exist believing we are fundamentally broken, we cannot create a new system. Okay? So like the first thing is, we can't become not something. So a lot of us in the liberation, the healing, the spirituality, the personal growth space, we see that the systems are messed up. We see that capitalism is messed up. We see that religion is messed up. We see that these systems that we operate under are harmful and exploitative. And we want to burn it all down, and we want to get rid of it. And that's a completely, again, normal and natural and good instinct. But we're not understanding that if we don't have something to go towards that's better, if we don't have an alternative, if we are not taking down what we have and simultaneously building up a new way, we will just continue to replace what we have with a different version of what we have. And we've seen this play out over and over and over again throughout human history. Of people overthrowing their governments, coups, like, we're going to burn it all down. And then what comes in its place is simply more of the same with a different human at the helm. Because we didn't change our fundamental view of things. And this is why change is so hard. Because changing our fundamental view of things, changing about our perception, is one of the hardest things we will ever do as human beings. So I have nothing but compassion for the fact that we are indoctrinated into a system, that we are indoctrinated into a way of seeing. Okay, so it's not just that we are taught what to think. It's we are taught how to think. It goes deeper than just being taught ideas and deeper than just being taught philosophies and truths. We are taught how to perceive what we perceive. We are taught what to reject, what to accept, how to determine what is and isn't truth. And when these things are out of sync with reality, which for most of us they are, we don't have the tools to deconstruct the system. Because our way of viewing the world is literally built up through the system. When we are trained to see that our pain is because we are flawed and not good enough, every time we are in pain, we are going to look for, what did I just do wrong? What's wrong with me? What's bad, wrong, shameful, broken about me that thing just happened? So that's trained guilt and shame. So now, what that does is that means we cannot look for the actual cause of our pain. We cannot look for, what are the systems we're operating in? What's the desire I actually had? What was my intention? What was the actual outcome? What's the pattern? What's really going on here? We can't look for any of that, which is what is actually required for us to do when we are in pain. Because we have been trained how to perceive pain, which is, I did something wrong. There's something wrong with me. I'm shameful. I'm broken. I'm bad. So when that's our foundation, we have no tools for being able to see the system. We have no tools for being able to deconstruct the system, because now we're on a loop of how do I fix myself so that that pain doesn't happen again. Okay, because it's natural and normal that when we are in pain, we all have the instinct to figure out what caused that pain. Why am I in pain? Why am I hurting? How do I make it so that that pain never happens again? That's the natural instinct that's coming up. And then it's being co-opted and turned into, okay, take that natural instinct and filter it through, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? How am I flawed? How am I the cause? And especially in personal growth, spirituality, and self-help, right? There's the toxic level of just take responsibility for yourself. So again, nuance, complexity. I'm going to get to it. This isn't saying that there's never anything that we can change, there's never anything that we can do, that it's never about us. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, when that's your instinct, because that's what you've been trained to do forever, I'm in pain, what's wrong and bad and broken and shameful about me? We are then disempowered for the rest of our lives to ever be able to see the systems that we're living in, what's wrong with them, and what we need to build instead, because we are too busy stuck in navel gazing when we are not the cause. So there's that half of it. The other half of it is the trained helplessness. My life is shitty, something hurts, even if we start to see the systems and we look at what's really going on. We then think, but there's nothing I can do. It's all so big, it's all so beyond me. Or I don't understand how life works, I don't know why this is happening. I can't do anything about it. I'm not capable, which is the other half of shame and guilt, is helplessness, and there's nothing I can do. I can't fix it, I can't understand it, and even if I could, there's nothing I could do because it's all so big and beyond me. This is how the system trains us to see pain. This is how the system trains us to perceive our pain and how it trains us to deal with our pain. To either give up, wait for things to change on their own, assume we have no power, or go into self-blame, shame, and guilt, fixing ourselves constantly, forever, and never seeing the full picture. So that's why I say, all the content that I put out is about breaking with this way of perceiving the world. We have to break out of our current ways of perceiving why we are in pain, of perceiving why we are looking at the world the way that we're looking at it and not seeing what we want to see. If we're ever going to be able to conceptualize a new system. Because if we can't see the system for how it exists, we can't build something new in its place. We can tear it down all we want, and we will put it back exactly how it was. We can deconstruct all we want. But if we're not deconstructing our perception, we are not deconstructing. This is why I always say, if your self-awareness practice is not leading you to compassion and understanding why you have done everything you have done up to this point, why you have believed everything you have believed, if it's not helping you be like, yeah, of course I did that. That was innocent. That was me trying my best to keep myself safe and to keep myself alive within the systems that I'm living in, within the options I knew that I had. If your self-awareness is not leading you to that conclusion, it is not self-awareness. Period. End of story. And I will not argue with you on that. Every single time, if it is not leading you to that conclusion, whoa, okay, this is my personality. This is the family I grew up in. This is what I did and didn't have access to. This is what I was and was not aware of. These are the systems I was operating under. My nature and my nurture. Of course that's what I did. That is true self-awareness. And then from there, again, complexity and nuance. This doesn't mean that we just say, okay, so now if I'm causing harm to myself or others, if what I'm doing isn't functionally the best thing, that's okay, because of course. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is we give up on I just need to white knuckle my way into being different. I just need to fix myself. I just need to change myself. I just need to stop doing these bad things. Because again, in order to actually change the bad things that you're doing, you need to first understand the needs your current ways of being are meeting. You need to understand why what you're doing right now feels like safety to you. You need to understand where these habits came from in your personality, in your family system, in your way of being. You need to understand the risk you are then going to take when you change, when you do something different, what you're going to lose, the comfort and the security, and how your nervous system is going to freak out. Because to your nervous system, change is threat, even if change is the best thing for you. In order to get through all of that, we have to have compassion for ourselves. We have to have understanding. And like I said, when we understand why we are doing what we are doing, when we understand why we have been doing what we have been doing, no matter how harmful, bad, shameful, whatever it seems to be on the surface, when we understand the positive intention, when we understand how it's us trying to get our needs met and keeping ourselves safe, that is how we can develop new strategies for getting that same need met, for keeping ourselves safe in new and different ways, in new and different ways. You can't just become not something. You're not gonna just take away a habit from yourself and be fine, because you have the habit for a reason. You're not just gonna stop being codependent. You have to start being someone who is able to be brave enough to put up boundaries, someone who is able to regulate yourself through someone being upset with you. You have to become the kind of person who starts to understand what you actually want and what you actually need, and then you don't just default to other people. It's a whole process. You don't just stop being codependent. You start being someone who knows how to meet your needs that you're getting met currently through codependency in new and healthy ways. And this is what we have to do on a societal level. We have to understand why we participate in the systems we participate in, how we participate in them, why they are set up this way, what their purpose is, what their benefits and what their negatives are. We need to understand who they're benefiting. We need to understand who is profiting off of us constantly feeling insecure and helpless. We have to see that first, so we can stop blaming ourselves. Okay, so like again, I put out all of this information because I feel like it's vital for humanity. And I don't put it behind a paywall because I feel like it's vital for humanity. I have created a mystery school. I have something that is behind a paywall because I understand that sometimes we need a program and something fully laid out map of the territory. I hold your hand and take you one step at a time all the way through this, because getting out of shame and guilt, the indoctrination of shame and guilt, is so hard that you sometimes, I have people who have watched my videos for years and don't hear the message because it's so counter to what they've been trained to see themselves as and trained to see reality as. So yes, I have something behind a paywall, but I also want to say, if you want to join and you can't afford, send me an email. I will give you access. I want everyone in my school because I truly believe that if we can break up with shame and guilt, we can start to see reality for how it actually is. And this is what is going to lead to us being able to liberate ourselves. Like, right? Of course I want everyone in my school because I truly believe that this is how we get there. But that's why I also put out so much free content, because I believe this is how we get there. So when we can start to understand that the shame and the guilt and the trained helplessness that our system has us under perpetually distracts us from seeing reality for how it is, we are going to understand that this is not our fault. That so much of the self-help, spirituality, and personal growth world is just a part of the system. I'm not going to name the religion, but the dominant religion in the West has a single narrative. You are fundamentally sinful. By the very fact that you were born as a human means that you are separated from that which brings you life. And you are going to have to spend the rest of your life rejecting and denying your humanity, what is natural to human beings. Navel gazing, judging yourself, questioning yourself, doubting yourself, dying to yourself in order to be saved and to get a good life. And then if you're not a part of religion, our dominant Western culture says, you are never enough. You are never doing enough. You are never accomplishing enough. You are never part of the in-group enough. You must be in a constant state. A constant state of fixing, changing, up-leveling, improving yourself. Changing trends. This is what's good enough, this is what's not good enough. This is what's in, this is what's out. You are constantly trained to be yourself, but not like that. Right? Be yourself, but not like that. That your authentic self should look like this. And that when you're being your authentic self, everyone's going to love you. And all of this is what keeps us trapped in the system. Spirituality, personal growth, self-help says, if you just take enough responsibility for yourself and your emotions and your body, you can transcend all pain. You can exist in our systems, be successful in our systems. You can be rich, you can be wealthy, you can be young forever and healthy by all of society's standards, and be spiritual and be liberated and be peaceful all at the same time. It's a fucking lie, because our systems are not set up for that. No, you cannot be a millionaire and living a life of being connected to your humanity. You just, those two things don't compute. But we're told through our spirituality and our self-help and our personal growth that you can. We're told through our self-help, spirituality, and personal growth, if you have anxiety, if you have depression, if you can't get along in the system, especially in therapy, you just need to learn to regulate. You just need to settle your nervous system. You just need to fix yourself, again, in some ways, fix your mindset. And then you should be able to get along in the system and be fine. No. You're having a reasonable response to the system. It makes you feel anxious and depressed and overwhelmed and scared because it's set up on these foundations of competition, hating yourself, having to disconnect from your emotions and your feelings and your body in order to work how we're supposed to work, in order to socialize how we're supposed to socialize, in order to consume how we're supposed to consume, and in order to produce how we're supposed to produce. And yet we're being told that if we just get enough therapy and do enough regulating, that we'll all feel fine while we do that, because the thing that's hurting is that we are messed up for some reason. We're just unregulated. Why are we unregulated? Why is no one asking that question? Why are we seeing a huge population of people who are all trying to do the same thing, and everyone who's doing it feels like shit? And yet we're going, yeah, no, the system's fine. How we're doing things is fine. It's that all of us are getting it wrong emotionally. How does that make sense? it doesn't make sense. But because we are so trained to blame ourselves for all of our pain, because we are trained to see that the system is correct, how things are is how they should be, and if I can't fit into it, there's something wrong with me, that we will pay billions of dollars to the self-help, spirituality, personal growth, therapy world to give us tools to fix ourselves until the day we die, thinking we failed to become the spiritual, equanimous person we were supposed to become. Instead of being like, no, it was because that was never possible in the system. That's not possible in the system. If you feel safe and secure and good in the system, you stop participating in the system. If you feel good enough, you feel safe, you feel regulated, you start to be the kind of person who doesn't take more than you need. You start to be the kind of person who slows down and doesn't rush everything that you're doing. You start to be the kind of person who's connected to your emotions and your humanity, and then you are no longer willing to participate in the constant dehumanization of anyone who isn't fitting into the classist, racist society that we have via consumption and production. You are no longer willing to participate in those things. You start to break the system because you start to see the flaws in the system, and you start to take your power back and say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to be a part of that. And then the system loses its power. So long as you are hating yourself, blaming yourself, shaming yourself, or in a state of hopelessness, the system can convince you to buy more things and to produce more things. It can convince you to be in a constant state of navel gazing, so you will not look up and be like, wait a minute, why? Why is this how this is? Why is this the way we do things? How is this okay? What's happening on the world stage right now? If we're too distracted, being like, oh, I don't have my chakras in alignment. I don't know if I'm in the right vibration. Am I manifesting the right things? We don't have time to be like, wait, what? What's going on? How is this okay? How should any human life ever be sacrificed like this? No, this is not okay. When we're too distracted, when we're too afraid of people judging us for calling out the system because we don't feel good enough inside of ourselves, we become complicit to the system. Okay, it's like being in a state of a new term that I've recently learned, functional freeze. Yep. Most people are in a state of functional freeze. We're just doing the same routine over and over and over and over again, looking for our next escape. We wonder why we have self-sabotaging behaviors, why we numb and we scapegoat. Because to stay awake in the system hurts. When we're not coping, we're going to be in pain if we're not getting out. And then this is the thing too, is that the more you radicalize yourself in seeing what is truly happening, and the more you start to say, I'm not going to participate in that anymore. Sorry to burst the bubble of the spirituality people, but no, you're not going to attract your tribe, as they like to say, co-optively. people are gonna think you're weird, and they're gonna reject you, and they're gonna project onto you, generally speaking. And you're gonna be more isolated a lot of the time. Because that's the big threat of the system, isn't it? If you don't go along, if you don't comply, if you don't go with it, you're going to be rejected. You're going to be cast out. And that's our deepest fear, that we're going to lose connection. So why do we stay stuck in cycles of shame, blame, and guilt, and helplessness and hopelessness? Because the threat of the other option is no one's going to like you, and you're going to be one of those weird people that has no friends. And for a lot of us, this is going to be true. When I started deconstructing my life and taking myself out of the systems the ways that I could, you better believe I lost most of the people that I was connected to. You better believe that people didn't understand me, and they judge me, and they see me as a freak, and they still do. You better believe that I'm pretty isolated. It's part of it. And learning to be okay with that, because we're not willing to sacrifice our own or others' humanity to be included, it's hard. Right? I don't look how I'm supposed to look. I don't act how I'm supposed to act. I don't live how I'm supposed to live. And most people don't want anything to do with that. Right? I don't look like Gabrielle Bernstein. I'm not like Eckhart Tolle. It's not pretty and it's not attractive. Because the real thing isn't. I mean, I think it's attractive to the people that are ready for it. But it's wildly unattractive to most people. Because again, it plays at our deepest insecurity. It plays at our deepest fear. You're going to be rejected. You're going to be misunderstood. People aren't going to like you. So we stay stuck in our shame and our guilt and our blame. We stay stuck in just repeating our habits of self-help and self-improvement and taking responsibility for ourselves. Or in our trained hopelessness and helplessness, and we just turn it off and we look away. Because it's easier. And it fits perfectly into our childhood narrative. Okay, so we have to also remember that as we were growing up, as we were learning about how the reality that we live in functions, from our perspective, being loved and being liked by the people around us, who were responsible for everything that we needed, for getting us all of our pleasure and taking away all of our pain, was the way to be safe. Right? We learned fundamentally at a base level that to be rejected is to die. And we learned that the only autonomy we had to improve anything, if we were being rejected, if we weren't getting our needs met, if we didn't feel safe, was to try to fix our own behavior so that people around us would like us more and give us what we want and give us what we need. That's why you do everything you do. You're just trying to find perfect safety by trying to become the person you think you needed to be in order for your caregivers to love you perfectly. Like, that's pretty much what all humans are doing, walking around. We're trying to become the people our parents wanted us to be. Or that we thought they wanted us to be from our childhood perspective. We're walking around looking for who we can get to approve of us so that we will be safe and we will get our needs met. We aren't learning how to say, okay, well, what are my actual needs? What do I actually want? I'm an adult now. I can do this. So again, the mystery school, it goes through all of this. There's a whole process of deconstructing this shame and this guilt. So again, right, a lot of us are going to have a lot of fear and resistance to letting go of our shame and guilt. Because number one, it's going to feel like if I stop blaming myself and shaming myself for everything, how am I going to fix anything? If this pain is not my fault, then I'm stuck in it forever. If I am not blaming myself, I can't protect myself from pain. That's literally going to be the resistance. And then the second thing is, if I stop blaming, shaming, and guilting myself, I'm going to stop being, or at least pursuing being, what everyone around me expects me to be and wants me to be and what would be acceptable. And then people are going to reject me and they're not going to understand me and I'm not going to fit in. And then I'm going to die. So that's what keeps us stuck. This is why this is so hard. Because it's not just about having compassion for yourself. It's about facing our literal deepest fear as human beings. That I'm going to be rejected and I'm going to be misunderstood and I'm not going to be safe if I stop blaming and shaming and guilting myself and trying to fit in. You see, like, this is hard. This is facing our literal deepest guttural fear that I'm going to be rejected and then I'm not going to be okay. It goes against our survival instinct to let go of shame, blame, and guilt. And that's why the system can so easily use it to manipulate us into doing what works for the system. Do you see? If you can continue to be convinced that your pain is your fault and it's because of your sinful nature or because you are helpless, so just keep going along with it, you will keep paying the system. You will keep playing in the system with the hope that one day you're going to fix yourself and you're going to improve yourself enough that you will finally have safety. And the system is set up so that you will never have safety, so that you will continue to believe that your lack of safety is because of you, is because you're broken, and then you will keep buying into the billion-dollar self-help industry. You will keep buying into producing more, consuming more, numbing out, trying to fix yourself, giving up, and it's round and round and round, and that's how the system perpetuates itself. When you stop saying, my pain is my fault because I'm fundamentally broken, you break the spell. I don't know how else to say it. You break the indoctrination. You come out of the delusion that is the foundation of what keeps us trapped in our systems. And that's how you start to actually deconstruct. That's how you start to actually see reality for how it is. That's how you start to connect to actual humanity and actual spirituality that goes beyond just checking out of your body or whatever, manifesting, blah, blah, blah. And then again, it's going to make you different because you're going to start to see how the systems work. And you're going to start to be like, I can't do that anymore. It's not about regulating myself and keeping myself going, right? And it's balanced. It's not going to be all at once. Not all of us are going to have the ability to take giant steps and change our lives in big ways. We will do what we can. And again, even just starting with reconnecting to our humanity and changing how we interact with the people that we love. Like literally learning how to hold space for somebody and their emotions because we're not so overwhelmed with our own. When we learn how to actually connect with another human being on an actual level, not just what can you do for me or how can we make this look like we're connecting or whatever, but you learn how to be in your humanity and how to recognize someone else's humanity. Even just that is a revelation, is a reimagining of how we can interact with one another. That is the foundation for the new system we want to live in. right? You don't have to quit your job. You don't have to leave the system. You don't have to pull your kids out of school unless you want to do those things, unless you're prepared to do those things. But right, like, and again, we also have to understand that a lot of us are drowning in the system, right? We don't have the option to just quit our job or to leave or to stop paying taxes or whatever it is. And so we have to have compassion for that. And we have to realize, okay, where is my power? What can I do to support myself and be on my own side and to connect with my own humanity and to connect with the humanity of those around me? Just in whatever way that I can, right? And that's why, like, especially in the school, right? Like, I don't tell you what to do, because for each one of us, it's going to be different. And the more of us who have the power to do things differently, the more of us who say, okay, I'm going to go out ahead and I'm going to do it, we make it better and easier for the people who are currently in a state where it's so much harder for them to be able to do it. Right? Those of us in the middle who have wiggle room, who have the ability to just stop buying fast fashion, to just stop participating in the constant consumption, to not take more for ourselves than we actually need, to not think that charity is the answer, but just, what if I stop taking more than I need? What if I stop being someone who indulges in the exploitation of the system that is so easy for me to indulge in? And I just stop doing that. And I turn my energy and I turn my awareness to something else, to being there for my community in whatever way that looks like, whatever your community looks like, right? Like, I try and show up for my community every single day, here on Instagram, on YouTube, on my blog. Like, I try to be here as often as possible in this way that I have to give. And it's not everything, and it's not the perfect thing. It's just one thing. Because I've set up my life that way. I'm not hustling behind the scenes to make more money, because I am okay. I have enough. I have a husband who has a good job. And so I don't need to be making millions of dollars doing this. I'm not charging hundreds of thousands of dollars for a master class. I'm putting all this out for free because I can. And that's not a pat on my back. That's just humanity. That's literally just, I'm connected to my humanity. I want this liberation for everybody. So I do what I can, and I don't think anyone else should do what I'm doing. It's you do what you need to do. And for some of us, that starts with just keeping your own head above water, right? And that's okay. If that's where you're at, that's not your fault. The system does that to us. It disenfranchises people to the point of not having very much wiggle room at all. And that's where I say, again, we start with compassion for you instead of blaming you, instead of judging you, instead of going into helplessness. We start with the processing of that's not your fault. You didn't choose that. You didn't put yourself in that position. And as you work through that, you're going to start to see where your power is and where your steps are. It's going to be both and. It's not, I give up. It's not, I have no choice because I'm having compassion for myself. It's phases. But we don't want to watch as the world burns around us and we didn't do anything and we didn't say anything because we didn't see it, or we didn't want to see it, or we didn't have the capacity to see it. Especially, like I say, those of us in the middle. Those of us who do have wiggle room, those of us who do have options. We have to start making different choices. But it comes with being able to say, okay, I am willing to be rejected. I am willing to be misunderstood. I am willing to not be a part of the crowd. Right? Like, we have to do that deep work, and it's hard and it's scary. And like I say, this is what keeps us trapped in it, because That's the foundational work. Like, holy shit, who wants to walk through that fire? I get it. But we have to if we're going to build something new. We can't keep operating on shame and guilt and thinking there's something wrong with us and navel gazing and fixing ourselves and right? We do that to a degree. We do that inner healing work and we deconstruct in a way that's not just perpetual trying to fix our humanity. Okay, so this is so true because even as we connect with our humanity, we can't make this a perfectionistic pursuit. The system will try to make us shift that perfectionism to our deconstruction dirty. Yes, right? And I talk about this so much. I actually try and put out something that says something like this pretty much every week. It is going to be a human journey. There is no perfection in this. There is no perfect way. There is no perfect path. We all get lost. We all get confused. Okay, like it, and liberation and forward momentum and change does not require perfection. That's purity culture. That's purity culture that's keeping us trapped. That's why I've talked so much about like being able to admit that we were wrong and being able to admit that we didn't know what we didn't know and being able to admit that we made mistakes is part of the self-love path. That you love yourself enough and you're secure in yourself enough to know it's okay. That's how it's going to be. We're gonna fuck up. The problem is not that we're gonna fuck up. The problem is that we need to learn how to recover from that. We need to learn how to recover from the fuck up. And shame and guilt keeps us trapped in now I suck. I fucked up. I'm the worst. I've been talking about purity culture all the last week. Yes, because it's in everything. It is our culture. Whether you're religious or not, it is our culture. You're not allowed to be wrong. You're not allowed to fuck up. There's no restorative justice. There's no learning. There's no growth. It's either you're perfect or you're broken. That is keeping us trapped. That is the system. I didn't do my meditation today. I fucked up. No, you didn't. You were a human. Do it again tomorrow. You're fine. I caused harm. Okay. Why? Where's the innocence? What were you trying to accomplish? How can you restore? And what can you do different next time? And you are still a good person. You are still fundamentally worthy of love. That's like, it sounds so simple, but so many of us can't do it because we've been so indoctrinated by the system into purity culture. See, you're broken. See, we were right about you. See, you need us. That's what that is. Over and over again. And so then we're navel gazing and navel gazing and navel gazing. And then they take and take and take and exploit and exploit and exploit. And we say nothing and we do nothing. And we take it and we see it as how it should be. And then when it happens to other people, we're like, phew, so glad that's not me. That's not about me. I don't want to be one of those bad people. Right? Like, people are disenfranchised in our system purposefully as threat to everyone else. Right? If you step out of line, you do the wrong thing, you will go to prison like these people. You will do this. Yep, and this is what's happening in social media right now. Navel gazing in the name of self-care as an excuse for not paying attention to the genocide that's happening right now. Exactly. Exactly. It's trained helplessness. It's trained helplessness, and it's trained, exactly, shame, blame, and guilt instead of acknowledging the problem. Over and over and over again, this is happening because we are trapped in purity culture. We are trapped in shame, blame, and guilt. This is why breaking out of this is the way to make a new system. And this is why, if we do not, we will constantly be scared by something. And what's happening? Everyone's getting scared, right? We're seeing this thing and it's horrible. And what do? Fix myself. Do you see what I'm saying? We have been trained that when we are in pain, when we are scared, we don't look for what the problem is. We don't look for what's actually happening. Our instinct is numb it out or fix myself. Do you see? Do you see what I'm trying to say? We're watching it play out right now. So we're watching something scary happen. And what's everyone doing? I don't want to say anything because someone might get mad at me. I'm going to fix myself because I'm scared. I'm going to check out because I'm scared. This is how we have been indoctrinated to respond to pain. There is a humanitarian pain that is rising up in all of us. Our humanity is saying, whoa, this is horrible and this shouldn't be happening. There's pain. And what are we doing? We're responding the way we've been trained to respond. Pavlov's dog. Do you understand? So when you break out of, when I'm in pain, I go into self-fixing. All of a sudden, you can start to see what's actually happening. That's why breaking out of shame, blame, and guilt is the way to create a new system. Otherwise, every time something scary happens, we navel gaze or we ignore it. And then nothing changes. And we can't see it. Do you get it? Do you see the connection here? Shame, blame, and guilt are what's keeping us trapped in our systems. Purity culture is what's keeping us trapped in our systems. That's the connection. Because it trains us that when we are in pain, when our humanity rises up, when we have an emotion, when we have anxiety, when we have depression, when we're sad, scared, lonely, don't know what to do, we fix ourselves or we check out. Shame, blame, and guilt. Hopelessness. And therefore, we never see the system for how it is. We never see reality for how it is. And we cannot create something new. Do you understand? I hope this is clear. So, like I said, if you don't have the means to join the mystery school, reach out. Watch all my free content. Get serious about moving past shame, blame, and guilt. It is the most important navel gazing you will ever do, because it will liberate you from the navel gazing. If you are not fundamentally bad, wrong, shameful, broken, and sinful, what might actually be happening in your life, in life in overall? These are the questions we want to be asking. That's why U.S. and Israel are so afraid of the children of Gaza. They are fearless. If we want something new, we have to change the way we perceive. That's why my company is called the Perception Trainers. We can't keep with the same way of being disconnected from our humanity and being disconnected from reality and think we're going to build a better system. It's not going to happen. Okay. So there we have it. Shame, blame, and guilt are always lies. Even if we're causing harm and doing something wrong, we want to learn why. We want to see the actual underlying cause and what we can do differently. Growth does not require shame, blame, and guilt. Being able to see where we're causing harm or where we were wrong does not require shame, blame, and guilt. And the less shame, blame, and guilt we have, the more we're going to be able to change when we need to change, right? Like, this isn't about saying, I'm shameless and guiltless and therefore I can just keep doing whatever I want. No. We weigh our ways of being against reality, outcome. And when it's harm, we change. Shame, blame, and guilt keeps us from being able to change. We all think we're going to improve ourselves by shaming and blaming and guilting ourselves, and it never works. Because when we're shaming, blaming, and guilting ourselves, we feel like we're going to be rejected, and we feel like we're going to die. And that means that our nervous systems get triggered into doing what we've always done. Because when we feel threat, we don't want to do something new. We want to do the same thing over and over and over again. So when we can break out of shame, blame, and guilt, we actually make ourselves feel safe. That's a hack of our nervous system. It's just because of how our nervous systems were built. When we perceive that we are being loved, we perceive that we are going to get our needs met and we are going to be safe. And that's when our consciousness opens up to be able to do something different. So again, we all think shame, blame, and guilt is going to make me a better person. No, it's not. It makes you scared, and then that keeps you stuck in your patterns. So even though you want to change, and even though you want to do better, and even though you want to do different, you can't. Because your nervous systems keep saying, I'm bad, and I'm wrong, and I'm shameful, and I'm guilty, and therefore, I'm not going to be loved, and therefore, I'm not going to be safe, so just keep doing what you've always done. When we are able to have compassion for ourselves, that's when we can actually say, okay, whoa, that's not a good thing that I'm doing. But it's not because I'm bad, and it's not because I'm broken and awful. I can see why I did that, and now I can see that there's a better way, and I can just do that better way. And it doesn't mean anything about me as a human being. The whole no pain, no gain cliche is part of this too. It keeps us stuck because we think the emotional pain means that we're doing it right. Right? Yeah, totally. It doesn't mean that there isn't going to be emotional pain in this. But yeah, just like constantly sitting there feeling like shit about yourself, it's just triggering you into your same patterns. It's not healing. Any spiritual teacher that shames you, run away. Any spiritual teacher that says, yeah, okay, that's harm. That's not great. So what are the positive intentions? What are you getting out of it? Where did you learn this was the only way? How can you support yourself in doing something different? That's what we want. Okay? Okay. We could go on forever. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for understanding. I hope this was helpful. I hope this illustrated the point. I hope this doesn't get taken down. If it does, I have it recorded and I will post it on YouTube eventually. But yes, I love you. You're good enough. You are good enough how you are. You are not broken. You are not shameful. You are not guilty. And you are not helpless. Yeah, all of these get saved. So every single one of my Instagram lives get saved to my page. You can watch every single one of them for free forever. And then they eventually go up on my YouTube as well. Okay? So yeah, thank you. I'll see you soon. Grateful for you too. Break out of your shame, blame, and guilt, and you will start to be able to see how reality actually functions. You're amazing too. Everyone here is amazing. We are all just doing our part, right? This is my little offering. I hope it's helpful. Listen to other teachers, listen to other people. There's lots of us speaking similar truths. Bolster yourself up because you are not broken. Okay. See you later.